In case you missed it, here's a Sports Animal Rewind.
We're here for the 14th annual Phillip Fulmer Golf Classic, so why not catch up with the former head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers and doing an awful lot these days, including doing a great work for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Tennessee Valley. Phillip Fulmer and Shawn Bryson together here on the new Sentinel Sports page. Coach Fulmer, how you doing?
Good, Vince. Doing great. Hope you and Mike are. Looks like you are, other than being a little bit nippy sitting here in the shade.
We are bundled up. Shawn Bryson, former Vol running back and NFL running back. How you doing, Shawn?
I'm doing great. How are you?
We're great. You guys have been out on the golf course so far. How was it for you here this morning?
Oh, it's been great so far. Me and Coach Fomer got around and hit a few balls with some of the people out on the course, and it's been fun.
You don't sound too excited about your performance, Shawn.
No, he should be very excited, but he can hit it. He actually can smoke it. But, we just go around and just have fun with the guys and take pictures and really thank the sponsors a lot. And Shawn is my legend. I bring back a legend each week, and he is truly a legend. I don't know if I ever had a player be so unselfish and do so much for me during their time at Tennessee for us, for the Volunteer Nation, because he really was a natural tailback, played 8 years of pro football at tailback, so it tells you certainly he was good enough, but played fullback for us and on the national championship team. And we did so many neat things with him, that you couldn't ordinarily do with a, quote, regular old fullback guy. I don't know how many balls he caught, but it was a bunch, and screens and quick-hitting plays and just stuff that were fun.
Yeah. Phillip, I want you both to kind of relive this. The national championship game, Shawn scored a touchdown, I believe, on am I right?
A little flat pass.
Yeah, it seemed at the time, I know in the press box, to me, I thought, what a great call. So if either of you have any memory of that, calling it. It
was a great call. Randy Sanders, called it. It was one of those things we'd worked hard on. We'd done it some during the course of the year, but Florida State was a really aggressive man-to-man team, and the fullback could get lost pretty easily. And I'll turn it over to Shawn. He's the one that actually did it from there, but it was a great call and well-executed play.
Yeah, all I remember is, the play being called, and I knew that my chances to get the ball were high, so I just ran to the flat, got my head around, caught the ball in the end zone, and that's it.
Not supposed to probably say this, but since we're out of coaching, it's one of those little old plays where you kind of screen somebody, it's a pick play sort of, like basketball picks, So we got the guy that had Shawn man-to-man, and he kind of got lost up with a tailback as well. And Shawn did just a fantastic job of making the defensive end miss, because that's kind of what can screw you up is if he knocks you down.
Yeah.
And it looked like the off-tackle play, and Shawn got in the flat. And, that's one of those things that's obvious. What Shawn did so many times was unobvious things. He had all those great tailbacks behind him, and he was making room for them. And then he was being a great leader in the locker room and on the practice field and all those kinds of things. And it's fun to have him back. He's got a great career now, and he did, as you said, Mike, came back and got his degree. And I'm so proud of that for him and his mom, because I promised her in the recruiting process that we would do that. And he came back and did that, and UT paid for it, I think, all those years later, which is still a great thing. And now he's trying to be a coach, and we've had a great morning talking about that, and he just a bit ago asked me, what do you think about, a young coach and the approach I should take,
Right.
We're having fun chatting about those things.
Talk about your role right now. You're a grad assistant at Temple, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to get into coaching, and that's one of the reasons why I went back to school.
And you were, in your 30s when you went back to school to finish up that last stretch?
Correct.
That wasn't easy.
No, it was definitely hard. I remember some long days on the road, driving up here from Atlanta, leaving my family down in Atlanta, coming here to stay, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and go back to Atlanta on Thursday evening after class. Since I have a family, I feel like it's important to spend a lot of time with my kids as much as I can. So, but yeah, it was tough, but I'm glad it's over.
How'd you end up at Temple? What was the connection there?
Well, it was kind of just like a shot in the dark. I knew, I don't know if you know Mark Ingram. last year or a couple years ago when I was coaching down at Lenore Ryan University, I did a NFL PA internship with them. And when I was finished up with that, I reached out to Mark and just reaching out, and he put me in the front of the right people that I could talk to, and just kind of ended up there.
Joined by Shawn Bryson, former Vol running back and NFL running back with the Detroit Lions, and Phillip Fulmer here at the 14th annual Phillip Fulmer Golf Classic at Willow Creek Golf Club. Coach, talk about you took a role with ETSU. How much have you been able to do, and how excited are you about that opportunity?
Well, Vince, I'm excited about their excitement. I mean, everybody in Upper East Tennessee and Johnson City and Kingsport and Bristol and Greenville, and, they're very excited about football starting back. And, they asked me to do the coaching thing, and, that's kind of, I think, in the rearview window from that standpoint. But I told them I'd help them, and we came up with this consultant thought, and they wanted a couple-year obligation. I said, look, let's do 4 months, and, 4 months from now you get to coach. You may not even need me to be involved, but there's a lot to do. I love the president, really smart, young, aggressive guy, has great vision for the university, and he believes, as I do, that athletics is an important part of college life, and it's a great connector to alumni, and he wants football back, and he wants it relevant. And before they did it with a shoestring. I mean, I wouldn't have been involved if I thought that was getting ready to be the case again. And they did the student fee thing, so they've got a base foundation to work from. They're going to build a stadium, get the Eastman involved and all the other Cole people and other folks up there involved. And I don't think they'll build a 30,000 seat stadium, but whatever it turns out to be, 15 or 20 or 12 or whatever that's relevant and good for them, that's what we're going to do, but it's going to be done first class.
We've seen some schools really fast track to try to get to Division I or the FBS. Is that something that they're thinking about over this period of time? We want to be on this level, anything like that?
I think that's a process. It's in process now of deciding what they can really do and how fast they can really do it. I personally think, if you go back and you look at the schools that have done the fast track, who ever heard of Central Florida, 20 years ago and those kinds of things. But, the enrollment's bigger than East Tennessee State's is and those kind of things. I think if they get to an FCS, conference and play at a high level and do that for a while, then they can start looking at those things. But right now, got to build practice fields and offices and buy equipment and, do all the things that I took for granted, because it was there. I only had to worry about those things. But we'll find the coach first. Somebody with energy and enthusiasm and some obviously some communication abilities to get out into the community and do those kinds of things.
I want to ask you, speaking of facilities and everything, I want to ask you both. I'm sure you've been back and been around the new facility at the Neyland Center there, the weight rooms, the locker rooms, all that. What do y'all think of that?
It's an amazing place. I haven't seen anything like it. Like the weight room is huge. Everything has completely changed since I've been gone from there. So it's definitely a nice place.
Well, I haven't been back, yet. I certainly will. Butch came over and we spent a couple hours talking, about how we did things, and I'm anxious to help him and everything. I've been invited back and I'll go back, but right now it's just really still a little bit difficult, just for me personally. I'm not mad at anybody or anything like that, but just, I've been on that football field for 30 plus years, and I helped build it. So it's just a little bit emotional for me to go back right now, but I will soon.
If you guys could both speak on this real quick, talk about Butch Jones reaching out to the men that have been so important to the history of Tennessee football and really making sure that everyone has that open door policy. If you guys could touch on that, on what Butch Jones has done to reach out to the former Vols and the Vol for Life.
I think he's done a great job. He's reached out to me. I know he's reached out to a lot of the former players. He's got, Terry Fair on the staff. So, I think he's doing a great job communicating with all of us and, making us feel welcome.
I think so, too. Everybody I've talked to, and, well, I've seen it firsthand, because we spent, as I said, a couple hours together and then several times on on the phone talking about, different things. And, that's what you have to do. We created a family during our time there, and kids came, and brought their kids to practice. And it was a great environment to be in. And, we checked at the gate because we didn't want just everybody coming in, but hardly ever anybody got turned away.
Yep.
And, we haven't been as agreeable to that in the last 3 or 4 years, and that's a mistake. Particularly, I think at Tennessee, and some people may do it, an entirely different way and have great success. But I think following what has been done there for so long, you can't all of a sudden just say you can't work out in the weight room, or I know you're a 10-year veteran, but you can't lift, and with these guys, it was great to have the former pros come back and be around, the athletes. So he's doing it the right way from that standpoint. Still got to go recruit and get those players in, and and get up to the level of. And everybody's going to have to be patient with that. Get up to the level of ability that's some of the division and the conference is right now, because I think we're still a ways behind.
Phillip, on the draft last night, we saw a guy from Central Michigan was probably, I think, a 2-star recruit, goes as the number 1 player, an offensive lineman. Were offensive linemen hard to evaluate or easy to evaluate as a recruit?
Probably the hardest position to evaluate. If they only played defensive or offensive line in high school, and more kids over the last 10 or 15 years have specialized more. Back 20 years ago, they're playing both ways.
Yeah.
And now they're specializing more. And, they may be coached to the level that they won't ever get any better. They may get bigger and stronger and those kind of things. And, it's hard to evaluate what the future is going to look like versus if you take a defensive lineman, which we had so many that moved over. You say, well, I'm pretty sure he can be a defensive lineman, but I know he can be an offensive lineman, because of the athletic ability. And I think this kid was a quarterback or something else, right? I think it's at one other time. And 3 tackles taken in the first 4 picks or something like that. I mean, that just tells you the value. Number one, what was available at quarterback and otherwise wasn't as deep. But it also tells you the value of those offensive linemen, particularly a left tackle.
Coach, we'll let you go. Talk about your golf tournament, the Phillip Fulmer Golf Classic here at Willow Creek. Always a terrific annual event.
It always is. This is our 14th year. They came to me right after the national championship. John Lee did, and I asked him, I said, John, I'll be willing to do this. And D.D. Lewis had done it for a long time and done it very, very well. But I think D.D. was ready for a change in the Boys and Girls Club. And so I said, I'll put my name on it, but I want to make sure we do it in a first-class manner. And they have done that. I really appreciate the Boys and Girls Club, the committees, the volunteers, the sponsors especially. It's great for Knoxville because it helps young people who have a safe place to be in the summer or after school, that they learn and they get better as people, and they get guidance. And unless you've been there when they get off the bus or out of the van or out of their parents' car and see the look on their face when they come in and they see their counselor and they get to a computer that they may not have at home, or they get to the library, which they may not have at home, or just going to see the other kids, it's just such a beautiful setting and environment. And I'm glad to be a part of it. I do several charities in town, and I'm appreciative to all of them because whether it's older folks like the Alzheimer's Association or kids, I mean, those are the 2 people that we can make the most difference in. And last night at our auction, we raised $40,000. It was our biggest auction.
That's great.
And we've been doing it for 3 years. We hope to continue that to grow. But it's about, trying to give back when you have time.
You get more information on the annual tournament. It's FulmerGolfClassic.com. You can also make a donation by calling Ernie Brooks at 607-0224.
I had a question for Shawn. Since his draft, you were drafted, I believe, by Buffalo, right?
Correct.
Did you, on draft day, did you have a pretty good idea it was going to be Buffalo, know it was going to be Buffalo, or did that just totally come out of the blue?
It came out of the blue. I had no idea.
I said, "Where's Buffalo?"
Yeah, I did.
It's cold up there.
That's all. I know. When I got the call, I was like, "Buffalo." I had no clue.
So you had other teams maybe expressing more interest, or?
Well, really, I knew I had worked out for a few teams, and I had no clue.
Well, Shawn, Coach Fulmer, really appreciate you guys stopping by. You guys enjoy yourself the rest of the day, and thanks for everything you're doing for the Boys and Girls Club.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you being here today.
Great seeing you guys.